live from New York. It's a show that's all I don't know how to do it.
Come on, man. We're professionals.
No, we're trying to introduce more European.
No, you are.
you
Not
are.
we.
No.
Not we.
I saw soccer guys are like, class.
Yeah.
So I want to say that from now on.
But
class.
you don't understand.
What does it mean?
It means great
World
or well
class.
done, but it Wild.
Right.
Oh, wait,
I'm
weird
Wild.
and
I'm gonna
wonderful.
tick you
Wilds,
off.
you get in every day at 10:30 in the morning. Yeah. You have 4.5 hours to write your silly jokes and to figure out the open. What'd you do today?
Not class.
I'm gonna upset you
Okay.
and work it in perfectly.
Okay. All right. I'm
Before you get
excited
a
for
chance.
You
it.
better buckle up. Is this the year Lamar gets over the hump? I don't know if I love that quote, to be honest with you. I kind of liked it, but then
I
through
like
another
it.
lens.
I like it. Nick, I hate to tell you, this is the year he gets over the hump.
Okay.
Not only does he play well in the playoffs, he leads the Ravens to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Victory. Not just appearance, victory.
Okay.
Lamar Jackson has been so good this year that it's hard for me to see him, and he has. We've fought over it and argued. He's struggled in the playoffs. He was great against Houston, I thought.
Yeah.
But for the most part, he struggled. Although it was years ago, but still. And he's been so good. He's also got Derrick Henry, who obviously is going to help, And he's got better receivers. Even Zay Flowers might be out. But, now
But Zay Flowers should be back, you would hope, for
going
the
forward.
tough
Yes,
playoff games
absolutely.
against Buffalo
Absolutely.
and then maybe against Kansas City.
Absolutely. So I do think he overcomes it. And he overcame Pittsburgh. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. You did, and he admitted, I got a monkey off my back. And he played great. That was the first time in his, 6 games against the Steelers that he had a passer rating over like 80.
Yeah, it was his first even good game against Pittsburgh, and it was a great game.
Right. And so I do, let me, your quote.
Please.
The quote, I know that you think that means he's nervous.
Well, it's not what I think he told us.
Well, I looked up antsy, nervous. I went to Oxford Languages and looked up nervous, and they had 23 synonyms, and antsy was not one of them.
What were the synonyms when you looked up antsy? Because I bet
antsy
nervous
had
is one of them.
nervous wasn't one.
Okay.
Fidgety, jumpy, restless.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Even if you are right, though, I'll play along.
Yeah.
Let's say it's nervous.
Well, yeah.
The great ones have to get over that.
Yes.
And I think he's a great one.
I do too.
And I remember another great one who used to get fidgety and nervous and had some meltdowns in the biggest games. And in his first trip to the NBA Finals, couldn't hit the Broussard of a barn, shot 35%. His next, a couple years later, big playoff game against Boston's Big Three. A meltdown that was inexplainable to people. Then he gets to the finals and in Miami and plays against Dallas. I thought they definitely should have won that series, and he melted down. And I'm, of course, talking about the great LeBron James, but he had to do some soul searching, and he got over it. So the notion that, you're a created killer. You can't, if you get nervous in the big moments, you'll never get over it. No. LeBron is Exhibit A, and I think Lamar will be Exhibit B.
So let me just respond to the LeBron thing quickly, and then I'll say some stuff that I think you'll agree with. And I think you'll agree with the LeBron thing. LeBron definitely, prior to winning his first championship, had some really low playoff moments. Most notably, I don't think the 07 finals when he was 22 is even anywhere close to the same category of the 2011 finals where he was the best player in the world and refused to take shots. But he also had some crazy high playoff moments along the way.
He did.
He had the 48 special, getting that team to the finals, averaging 38 in a series in the Eastern Conference Finals against Wright. They lost all that. That, I think you would agree, has not been Lamar's path.
No, other than the one game against Houston.
Right. Prior to that game against Houston, he never had a playoff game with a passer rating of 80. He never had one. For his playoff career, it's not only a losing record, it's just the one really good game and 4 really awful games and 1 mediocre game. Right. So I do appreciate Lamar, in my opinion, confirming what I've been saying. Which the reason I get so frustrated with the reaction to my Lamar Jackson opinion is not just because it was an opinion shared by a lot of people after last year's playoffs and then changed based on a regular season that I think everyone after the playoffs said, I've got to see him do it in the playoffs, and the playoffs haven't started yet. But also because, to me, it is so obvious and not a singular indictment on Lamar. A lot of the greatest athletes we've ever seen get tight in the big spots. And a quarterback that is universally accepted as one of the 5 greatest quarterbacks ever. And Lamar with 2 MVPs and maybe a third is, at this point, one of the 15 greatest ever and climbing that list is Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning's playoff trajectory, we said it, Lamar's 2-4, passer rating of 75-ish for the playoffs. Peyton Manning's first 6 playoff games looked like this. But that's good and bad. And here's why I don't think this is the year Lamar gets over the hump. Peyton Manning never got over it.
I was going to say.
Peyton Manning, for his career in the playoffs, was a 500 player with an 87 rating compared to winning 70% of his games with a 97 rating.
2 Super Bowls.
Right. The year they won the Super Bowl, he had 3 touchdowns, 7 picks in the playoffs. He always got tight. Now, he was such a great regular season player that he got so many bites at the apple.
And he got to a lot.
And he got to 4. And, one year you have a great defense with Denver. One year you have an amazing running game and pretty good defense with the Colts. And it all works out. So do you think he never gets over it? I don't think he's going to. The LeBron comp is an odd one because I said I don't really agree with it. But no, I don't think there's going to be like a inflection point like Game 6 against Boston for LeBron in 2012 when they're facing elimination. He goes 45-15-5, and from that moment forward won 4 titles. I don't. I think Lamar. I also think one day he'll win a championship. And maybe
but
it will.
Not because of him. I mean, because.
Well, but the thing is this: when the Colts won in 06,
all you got to do is win. Elway wasn't his Super Bowl stats aren't great. I get all that.
And so, when the Colts won in 06, they won that Super Bowl because of Peyton Manning, because they would have been nowhere close to being a Super Bowl team without him getting there in the regular season and making a few key postseason plays. But he still wasn't Peyton Manning in those playoffs. And so that's why the reason I get frustrated a bit is not with you guys, and I really do, I think, a pretty good job of not listening to or reading mentions or caring what the internet says about me. But the Lamar thing bothers me because it feels like people think I'm being unfair when I think they are assigning an indictment that I'm not. I don't think it is that rare for an all-time great player to get tight in the playoffs. Dan Marino did. Peyton Manning did. Peyton's brother, Eli, was actually the opposite. He was a mediocre regular season player in all accounts, but actually got better in the playoffs. That's why I bring up the Harden stuff or the Aaron Judge stuff. We see it all the time in sports. And that's what I've seen from Lamar throughout his career, and now he's putting words to, I get antsy. He's saying, I feel different going into these games and it affects my play. Here's why I think for one, I like him acknowledging. Sure. Everything he said this year, I think his leadership's been great. The things he said, and I totally agree. Everything, obviously his whole career, he's been doubted. He can't do this, he can't do that. And all the way up to negotiating his own contract. Yep. He has overcome. And this year, this is the first year, Nick, where I think he's actually an elite passer. I'm not saying he's Mahomes or Joe Burrow necessarily, but I think he has become a very good passer. And I think in the past, like with LeBron, some of LeBron's problems, at least like San Antonio series. Couldn't shoot. Sure. And I think Lamar really he certainly wasn't a great passer. He was a good passer, but a great runner. And that's why I think he's improved so much. And then, like I said, Henry. And I think he proved something against Pittsburgh. We'll see. Okay. But I think
popular narrative, Lamar can't be the MVP because his brand new running back, Derrick Henry, was almost too good. Helped the Ravens offense too much. Not like Josh Allen. Brew, did is it fair for Derrick Henry's success to sink Lamar's MVP chances?
It's fair for it to be considered. Like, it should be a factor. Like, your supporting cast should absolutely be a factor. It shouldn't be the deciding or overriding factor necessarily, but it should be part of the equation. However, if you do make it the only factor, or at least the number one factor, it can lead to some embarrassment. And I point to Shaq and Kobe. They, over their 8 years together, kind of, worked against each other. I don't mean personally,
I get it.
But people like, well, Shaq's got Kobe. That's why they won 60 games. And Kobe's got Shaq. They each only have one, universally regarded as top 11, 12 players of all time. They have 2 championships. Two MVPs, one each. Steve Nash has as many MVPs as Shaq and Kobe
And
combined.
Kobe won his, had to wait till Shaq was gone.
Right.
And Shaq won his kind of right before Kobe became a super duper star.
Right.
You know
But
what I
he
mean?
was
Once
still
they,
kind of
but once
working
they,
against Shaq.
during the whole time they were together, when they were both super duper stars, neither one really came that close to winning MVP for what you're talking about.
So that's where you have to be careful. And here's what I'll say with Lamar and Derrick Henry, why it shouldn't, and you guys know, I think Josh Allen winning, I'm not going to raise a fuss when he does, because I get it. But I think Lamar has been so good. And in the past, we haven't, I take history into account. When Mahomes won his first MVP, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce were also first-team All-Pro. And they weren't quite viewed as they are, but Kelce obviously arguably the best tight end ever, and Tyreek a Hall of Fame receiver. When Tom Brady won his first MVP, that was the first year he got Randy Moss. And Brady's numbers had not been close to what they were that year with Moss.
Yep.
Like, he almost doubled his career high in touchdowns. He had 28 was his career high in touchdowns. He went 50. Almost had 5,000 yards for the first time in his, it was the first time he had a passer rating over 92.
And it was 100.
It was 117.
Yeah.
So I think in the past we haven't, and obviously Mahomes has had Kelce his whole career in those MVPs.
So do you think, though, that, because I feel like we tend not to hold pass catchers against quarterbacks winning MVP because part of their stats get assigned to the quarterback.
Sure.
But I don't think so.
Well, I just think running back is different, and this is the point I made a few weeks ago that Wild, I don't know if it was on or off the air, was like, you see it this way, I don't think anyone else in the world does, but I continue to see it this way. We saw this happen last year to Brock Purdy with Christian McCaffrey, where Brock Purdy did not have a 120 passer rating like Lamar, but he led the league in passer rating. It was his stats were unbelievable, and I understand he had the meltdown game against Baltimore late in the year. He didn't have that. But the other thing, there were 2 things really dragging on Brock Purdy's MVP case. One was, well, how much of this is you and how much of this is Christian McCaffrey? And if we put up their numbers, McCaffrey versus Derrick Henry for the year, they are stunningly close. And so that did hurt Brock Purdy. I think we all agree. The other thing that hurt Brock Purdy is the pedigree part of it. And that exact same thing is hurting Lamar, but it's just the inverse of it. Purdy was dragged down by, do we really want to give the last pick of the draft league MVP? I do think that hurt him. I talked about it. That's why you threw Brian Sipe and Rich Gannon. And I think what's hurting Lamar is this guy's really going to win 3 already. Like, it's, again, something unrelated.
I think that was hurting him going into the season. It was something I certainly considered. I don't know if that's working against him.
Well, I think the reason he's not going to win is because he won last year. I think if he hadn't won an MVP since his first year as a starter, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean.
I don't think it's even
and that's really unrelated to this season. But I do think that a lot of the Lamar should be MVP arguments this year go against the Lamar should be MVP arguments from last year, and a lot of the Josh Allen should be MVP arguments for this year are identical to the Lamar should be MVP arguments last year.
Can I fight back against the CMC thing?
Yeah.
CMC in the prime of his career, right?
Yeah.
Derrick Henry was a free agent, and teams looked at Derrick Henry and said, we don't want Derrick Henry. We think Derrick Henry is over the hill. Derrick Henry's had a lot of touches. We don't expect Derrick Henry to be...
He was 30 years old. He's 31
He's just kind of like that wasn't... When Derrick Henry signed, we thought it was good, but we didn't expect this type of year from him. He's having this type of year, in my mind, because of Lamar. So I think the concept is totally backwards. Not Derrick Henry's success should not hurt Lamar. Derrick Henry's success should help Lamar because Lamar unlocked youthful
I have
Derrick
a graphic
Henry.
right in line with what you're saying.
Oh, perfect.
Look at this, Nick. Derrick Henry last year compared to Derrick Henry this year. He averaged 68 yards a game. Now he's at 113. Look at the yards per carry, the touchdowns. Like, that is true. I mean, Lamar has definitely helped Henry too.
Well, so I agreed, but the reason I don't think people are viewing it quite that way is we have literally seen Derrick Henry play this well before. Correct?
Yeah.
We have.
But we didn't think he still had it.
Sure. But we knew this is not an anomalous year for Derrick Henry. It's surprising because of it's coming right now. We've seen it. I think a lot of people, and Brew has made this point, that this is the best Lamar has ever looked. Mm-hmm. And so we hadn't seen Lamar look this way. You know what I mean? So. And so it's a, you know what I mean? They both, by the way, they both clearly incredibly help each other. And so, but I just think historically that you look back, Brew, that with the greatest show on turf Rams, Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk had to like trade off MVP awards. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it was, and so the running back quarterback is viewed a little differently than the quarterback wide receiver because I didn't think people were like, oh, Mahomes doesn't deserve it because of Tyreek, but they might have if he had an awesome receiver or running back. Sorry.
Here's an old Kelce video that I don't think we're actually doing.
What do you mean?
You wanted
action. What do you mean? We're doing the Travis Kelce story right now.
Okay, sorry. Kelce's. Sorry, I got lost. Kelce didn't think that he needed to avoid the Bengals.
Let's go! I'm ready to run through a wall. That is so great. And so he's saying, let's just forget reseeding. Give us Baltimore and then Buffalo because they're only going to have to play one of them. And that is the funnier version of Mahomes a few hours after suffering the high ankle sprain in the playoffs 2 years ago when they beat the Prince and the Jags and being asked, because the next day Buffalo was playing Cincinnati, and his dad asked him, who do you want to win? And he was like, well, we match up better against Buffalo, but I want Cincinnati because they've been talking so much. And and Kelce, I'm just telling everyone, and these might be his final 3 games in the NFL. It's certainly on the board. You are about to see a throwback peak Travis Kelce performance. I told you all year, I thought he had 5 or 6 great games left in him. He used up 1 in the regular season right after Rashee Rice got hurt before they got DeAndre Hopkins because the team needed it to stabilize. And now with a month off and that level of intensity, I think it's unbelievable. I cannot wait.
Easy to say now that the Bengals are
gone. Oh, give me a break.
You ain't going to meet the Bengals, and you're certainly not going to meet them in a Walmart parking lot, all right? No, I'm just playing. No, look, if you're a Chiefs fan, this is what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And he has always backed up his bravado. Let's see if he can do it now coming off the worst year of his career. Because these numbers show, I mean, it was the worst year of his career. Career lows and everything, receiving yards, touchdowns, yards per reception. I'm not saying he can't, have the big postseason. I'm just saying he is coming off his worst year when they didn't have a bunch of great receivers. And so they needed him to be bigger, or it would, he could have been bigger. They didn't need it.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.